Welcome to the Be Your Soul podcast. I'm your host, Sky Bradshaw. Today, we are all about the alchemy of self, and each of the 3 segments will go a little deeper into the topic. So be sure to listen through to the end for helpful tips, tools, and guidance on how to do the work. In the Skylight segment of today's show, we get to connect with Reiki Master Teacher, Certified Great Life Coach, and Magical Blacksmith, Sam Thompson. Before we dive into the Unclouded Heart segment for spirit messages of wisdom, let's invite ourselves to become present in this moment within our body, mind, and energy. Take a moment to invite yourself to take some deep and cleansing breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. And in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, allow your body to relax, 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 relax. And as we move into this space of complete relaxation, we open up our energies to the ancestors, loved ones, and friends to come together today to heal and guide us and lift us to the highest version of ourselves in the light of the universe. So we may hear what we need to hear, know what we need to know, connect how we need to connect, and be what we need to be for our highest and best good and the highest and best good of all involved as we open up space to give and receive. The alchemy of self. The definition of alchemy is a seemingly magical process of transformation, creation, or combination. In ancient Greece, alchemists attempted to purify, mature, and perfect certain materials. When I think of the process of remembering the authentic self and what it takes to get back to ourselves, it likens to that theory of purifying, maturing, and perfecting our connection to the authentic self. To me, it isn't the self that we are putting through an alchemic change. It is our access to our authentic self that we are alchemizing. Creating that clear pathway allows us to bring clarity, understanding, and trust to the connection with our authentic self. I try to remind people that we aren't finding ourselves because we aren't truly lost. Oftentimes, we're just hidden under layers and layers of learned behavior, heavy or traumatic experiences, survival skill sets that got stuck in place, and the thousands of other things that can happen to a human during its lifetime. We aren't technically trying to turn lead into gold. What we are refining is how we see ourselves and the path to that authentic self. When we do deep inner work and create a space for healing, it's more of an unmasking or unlayering. It's why I call it remembering, because there is this sense that we are always there as our authentic self, deep inside. The seemingly magical process of personal transformation, spiritual creation, and whole self combination allows us to alchemize our lead-plated lives into pure gold. As with most things we earn in life, it isn't a simple process where we can snap our fingers and immediately remember our authentic self. It follows that Haitian proverb, little by little the bird builds its nest. In inviting us piece by particle to align with that vibration of our authentic self. Sometimes that will mean we add things in through knowledge and wisdom, and other times it means that we let things go that no longer serve us. If we can keep a bright light shining on our authentic self, then we can move through these layers and cycles knowing that what we are earning is more valuable than gold.
Production of the Be Your Soul podcast is made possible in part by Tarot by Sky, because it's your future. Tarot by Sky offers intuitive tarot and energy healing sessions, as well as life coaching, classes, spiritual guidance, and more. Offering sessions via Zoom, email, phone, or in the office in Greensboro, North Carolina, Sky is ready to help you turn change into growth. Book your session today on the web at tarotbysky.com and find her on Facebook and Instagram at Tarot by Sky. Stay tuned for a conversation with magical blacksmith Sam Thompson.
Today, we are excited to welcome Sam Thompson, magical blacksmith at Ravens Keep Forge, author, teacher, Army veteran, Reiki master, life coach, and priest of the Morrigan. I first met Sam long ago when he was president of Triad Cups. And fun fact, his podcast, Bow on the Go, was my first ever podcast interview. He walks the spiritual walk in every endeavor I have ever had the pleasure of connecting with him in. Today's topic is alchemy of self and how applying the proper energy and guidance to a practice can unveil the authentic self. Since we both have been through many stages of self and are sometimes parallel and sometimes straying journeys, I can't think of a better guest to have on to talk about the alchemy of self. Welcome, and thank you for being here. It is really, truly an honor to have you.
Yay, we've kind of seen some stuff.
We have. It's true.
and actually, I think I was vice president when we first started circling up.
That's true.
Then
I think you were. Then you were president.
Yeah, so way back. So you're gonna have to add some more time.
It's the mystery time before the internet. So, luckily we weren't.
If you don't have pictures, it never happened.
Right. We weren't TikToking during those days, so we're all right.
Wasn't me.
I don't know what happened. So other than the idea of just your true authentic self being something that you stand in and touch as often as possible, I think that alchemy of self also has to do with your magical blacksmithing, which is just a beautiful art and something that truly, puts me in awe and mystery. I'm one of those people who can look at something with awe, and just be so impressed by it. And your work is one of those things. So a blacksmith takes metal and heats it so it becomes soft and pliable. So then they can shape it and transform it. How do you think that analogy transfers into life or particularly spiritual practices?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with, once again, working on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times we're in a big hurry to get finished, right? And I think with the thing that smithing has taught me is that it takes time,
mm-hmm.
right? And there's a lot that goes into it, right? So as far as I'm concerned with the alchemy of self, it's about that process of working on me, constantly changing, shifting, learning, creating, co-creating, right? So I think co-creating is an art we have forgotten. I think a lot of times we get so busy on what I'm doing that we don't pay attention to what we're doing,
mm-hmm.
right? But I think the transformational part of blacksmithing, going from blob or chunk, into something either decorative, or cool, which can also be decorative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Useful and decorative. It's that process of starting with raw material, and going to a finished product. In my case, most of my work is upcycled, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
I take other people's junk and I make something cool out of it, or it becomes something cool.
Yeah.
A lot of times I think I just facilitate the process. I don't really have a lot to do with it. I'm just kind of there.
That's how I feel about sequening. Sometimes when I look at a blank cloth and start feeling the energy of wants to go into the cloth, and then I draw on it, and then then it's that very little by little the bird builds its nest, as they say in Haiti, slow process of stitch by stitch till it eventually months later comes into this beautiful piece. And so I feel like it's all feeling it through, even though, you're starting with this blank cloth, or you have an idea in your head, like allowing it to just transform itself and you to be the vessel that lets it happen.
And allowing the idea not to be what the end result is.
Right.
That's the hard part. I'm very blessed because most of my clients, people that come to commission work for me, will say, here's my idea. Can you come up with something? And I said, yeah, I don't know what it'll be. I will try to make it within the guidelines, but once I get started, it's kind of, it's on its own, right? Because metal definitely has a life, in my opinion. Well, in my world, metal has a life of its own.
Right. Yeah.
I'm very much an animist, so it has, it has its own kind of spirit because it's of the earth. We're so disconnected from metal now, even though we're surrounded by it.
Yeah.
We just don't see it anymore. So I think that's, for me, my practice was very transformed once I kind of clued into that.
Yeah.
It's huge for me personally.
And I think that's everyone should approach their spiritual practice however they feel called to approach their spiritual practice. But to me, the biggest value was, if you would have asked when we met where I thought I would be in my spiritual practice, I would have never dreamed right here in this moment talking to you, right?
Me neither.
Right. And so had I limited myself to all that my mind could imagine, I wouldn't have gone very far. But because I expanded out into what spirit imagined and allowed that energy to come forward, like the greater divine vision of me, who knows where we'll both be, in another 20 something.
And I think that's the key, is that for me, I was doing the work, right? You don't wake up one day where you are.
Right.
Well, I mean, literally you do. All right. So, okay. I know that. So literally you wake up, there you are. Right. I got that. But you've got to do the work. If you want to have a robust, intimate, spiritual life, you got to do the work.
Absolutely.
And the work is hard. Really hard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff you've got to go through. So, and I think that's, people want the pleasure without the pain. And
right.
Growth hurts.
Right. My favorite saying is, you can't have change without change. And so,
I had a mentor. One of my mentors would say, change is inevitable, but growth is optional.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Well, maybe it was you. I don't know. I remember hearing it from somewhere, and maybe it was you. But I think that's for us, for me, doing the work day in, day out, having the commitment to do it, especially when it got hard. It's easy. Well, I won't say it's easy to do when it's going good, because I don't think that's true. For me, that's not true either. You still work, but it's different, right? But I think it's doing the day in, day out, taking the time, embracing the suck. There's a military term for you, because you've got to, for me, I had to do that. There's a lot of stuff I had to clean up, right? From decisions I've made, and choices I've had, and there's some of them weren't all really good, and some of them were things that I had done, that I had to deal with, right? From being in service, there are some things that, that you got to deal with, right?
Right.
So, but that's part of growth, and that's part of, I wouldn't be here without that.
Yeah, definitely. And part of that understanding, like what we put in is what we get out sort of feeling, is like, there's an earningness to anything you do. And what are you putting, our energy goes where our attention flows. And so where's your attention? What is your attention earning right now for you? And that's where I think a lot of people, instead of thinking, well, this is a mountain that I'm trying to climb, or a wall that I can't get behind, it's like, what am I trying to earn? And how do I get one step closer to what I'm earning? And sometimes that means you're in the muck and it's hard and you don't like what you're learning, or that it's a hard lesson, right? A lot. Yeah. And then other times it's through that, beautiful vision, but technically it can all be beautiful vision, like no mud, no lotus sort of thought process. We've got, there's a balance of everything in everything. And what changes is our perception, how we can perceive the value of it. So I agree with that.
Like you said, and I think you have to look at what's the object of the exercise.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you want to get, and how committed are you to, how much resolve do you have?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to be resolute on any, I think you have to be resolute on any spiritual path, because no matter which one you're on, from what I know, and I don't know everything, is that you're all going to have a growth edge.
Yeah.
There's some part along there where you're not going to like it, and suck it up, buttercup. It's just part of life, right?
Well, and that's where I think that, we go into the expectation creating challenge, is because, if we expect everything to be nirvana and there's going to be this beautiful, magical journey that never is uncomfortable, and we set that expectation up that, like, once I become enlightened, then my life will be perfect. Or once I get this initiation, everything will be grand. And the truth of it is, we live on a planet with billions of other people. We've got human things that we have to do, and we have to embrace that humanness, which says some days you're going to piss me off. And what changes is my spiritual ability to be able to temper myself in that moment and not react in those spaces. So, talking about tempering, one of my spiritual messages that I got from Ogu, who's one of the warriors, who is also known as a blacksmith, he said that fire can temper steel or burn you. Whichever one happens is up to you. So, what's your take on that? Like, what's the blacksmith version of thinking about this?
Well, I think, if you look at the process, right? Obviously, it's hot. The term red hot comes from blacksmithing. It's literally red hot. Yeah. But tempering is one of the final things that you do to a piece of metal, right? Depending on where you are with it, when you can make a spring, right? Most of your metal springs are tempered to a certain level, and which would be different if you're making something like a knife or sword or a thame, something like that. It has a different temper, but both of those are towards the end of the process, not at the beginning. In the beginning, you've got just a hunk of blob of whatever that you're twisting, drawing out, right? Making long, changing, curving, whirlette, whatever, before you ever get to the tempering process. So I think some of that is, you're going to hear me say it a lot. You got to do the work,
right?
Before you get, to the end, right? You don't start at the end,
right.
But I don't get the pleasure of starting at the end. I have to go, from the beginning. And I think you should also have the expectations that you're going to get burnt along the way. It's part of the process. It's just, if you accept it, it's like I teach classes up here for blacksmithing. And I tell people at the beginning, expect to get burnt. So when it happens, because it will, it's not going to be a surprise.
Right.
Now you're not going to end up with, major scars, right? Nothing cool, but you're going to get burnt. It's hot.
Yeah. And I think to me, part of that, like, if you are in that space of preparedness or in that space of living in the moment or paying attention to the journey, then you also know you're going to have, using the analogy, like a first aid kit on your side. And so that, burn doesn't have to turn into suffering. It turns into the process. It turns into
celebration.
The story, the celebration. Right.
There, I got burned. All right. I don't have to get burned anymore.
Right.
I got it out of the way.
Right.
Yay, me.
And it's a good story. That's the other thing. It's part of the story. You embrace it as part of the story. And it doesn't mean we have to suffer to learn. But there's a difference in discomfort and suffering. And I think that that's where we kind of get it twisted sometimes, which says, well, that was uncomfortable, or, oh, that was exciting is my word I like to use when something happens that wasn't planned. Well, that was exciting, but it doesn't have to create another wound. It can be the wounds that it is, and that wound turns into the story. So I think that that's the other aspect of that, seeing the whole process, doing the work, we don't have to technically suffer in most situations. What creates the suffering is our belief, our prospect, our reaction. Yeah, like that sort of aspect of things. So, as a blacksmith and a child of the Morgan, what is the most powerful message that your art has taught you?
That it's not about me.
Mm.
I wanted to be recognized. I wanted to look what I did,
Yeah.
right? And learn that none of that is true.
Right.
It's more about the work.
Yeah.
Right. Because, my work is about, getting people reconnected to metal, I provide people tools so they can do their work.
Mm-hmm.
That's my work. Right. So I'm like a supplier. Get your metal dose right here. No, and that has been a hard lesson, because especially when you're, like I was within the community, and at a level of being recognized, which, I've worked, wasn't something that was given to me. I earned that. But it's different when that time versus this time. I started down that path and then got rearranged. So I think, I think that's probably the best thing that I've learned about this is that it's really being in service is not about me.
Yeah. That's
hard.
It is hard. I'm full of Haitian sayings. So there's a Haitian saying that says, salt doesn't boast that it's salted. And I think that that's part of recognizing, like, as the person who is the vessel, as the person who is the catalyst, the energy that, opens up space for others in that way. Like, we don't see ourselves on the mountain. We see ourselves in the valley, like looking at the potential of all things in those spaces. And it is hard because not only our egos, we're all born with, like human ego, but we're also, societally taught to measure things like, oh, well, what's your title? How have you, where are you in this space? Right. And instead of just going like, I'm just here to do the best work that I can and be in service however I can, whatever that looks like, I want to let it flow.
Well, my thought is it would not be as good if it was just me.
Right.
It has become, because it's not me, it has become its own thing. And I don't think that I would have had the level of success it is having.
I agree. Like I definitely,
a big difference.
I believe the same in the practice that, it's like the sum is greater than the one. It is our responsibility, as we were talking about earlier, to make the one as good or as best or closest to our highest self as we can. But really, it's because when we link into that sum, then we're, bringing our A game in that space. And so, like, if we tune into that sum energy, whatever it may be, for our particular belief system, like just tuning into the divineness of all things, the sacredness of all things, and allowing that, then that really is a game changer when it comes to what we have access to and how we have access to healing others or helping others heal themselves, I think.
Yeah. I think it's, once I learned, it's taken me 50 something years to get there. Right. I mean, it didn't happen.
Right.
There was a couple of twists and turns along the way, and a pause or two, and, a roller coaster of epic proportions. But I think the relentless pursuit, I think if you work on it long enough, you'll figure out what your work is. And I mean, work with a capital W, not a little w, right?
Right.
And then you do that. And you do that with everything that you got, because that's why you're here. For me, that's how I feel.
Oh, yeah.
And what we need in this world right now is a boatload of people doing their thing, and doing a lot of it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I agree. Is there anything else about like the alchemy of self or blacksmithing you want to let people know, as far as like spiritual connectivity and the like?
Well, I think, for to move metal, it's got to be uncomfortable if you think about it. So I think knowing that you're in the midst of almost melting, right? So when it gets that far, that's when epic change can happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in the easy part. It happens in the hard part. Right. And that's where change happens. And I think you're looking at alchemy, which to me is change, right? Or an opportunity to change. And I'm talking to me too, right?
Right.
Don't think I'm all that in a bag of chips.
No shaking fingers here. Anything we're saying from experience.
Yeah, I'm talking to me, not y'all, right? I think that's it. And you just have to kind of hold on sometimes. There's a lot of times where it's like, I don't know how this is going to work out. I got no clue what I'm doing. I'm doing what I'm told. And I have faith that, it's like that saying from Shakespeare in Love, the guy that runs the theater, how's it going to work out? I don't know. It's a mystery. That's kind of my life philosophy right now. I have no clue what I'm doing except what I'm told.
Right. Yeah. Just listening to spirit and doing that.
Yep. I'm just, because my beloved will constantly say, well, why are you doing it? I don't know. I have no idea. I'm just, I'm doing what I'm told, because it helps me sleep,
Yeah. It feels better than not doing it.
Yes. So I think that, if you're looking at alchemy, you're looking at opportunity to change, because people think they're trying to change lead into gold. I think gold's pretty, gold's shiny, but it really has no use other than being pretty. I would much rather be another metal. Something that I can,
I missed an opportunity. If you were going to be a metal, what metal would you be?
Yeah, see, you missed it. It wouldn't be gold, I can tell you that.
So I ask every guest 3 questions.
Okay.
And the first one is, what do you think it means to be your soul?
To be my soul? Soul, S-O-U-L, soul.
Yes.
What do I mean? For me, that's just living my purpose. Whatever that is. I think for me, looking at it early on, I thought once I started down my path, that everybody had the same destination. And I think that that's a travesty to think that way. Because everybody ends up being the same and nothing gets done. It's like, to borrow from the Christian analogy, what is it? The body of the body of Christ. You've got to have feet, and you got to have hands, and you got to have mouthpieces and eyes and ears. And if everybody's hands, you're not going anywhere because you ain't got no feet.
Right. It's true.
So I think living your soul is about finding out what it is that makes you, that fulfills you, that makes you tick, that you have that comfort that you're doing what you're supposed to do.
That's beautiful. So what's one thing you do no matter what to get your self-care every day?
I check in with the Morgan every day, right after I feed the cats. I would like to say it's the first thing that I do, but the cats take precedence. They're higher up on the food chain, no pun intended. But I spend even when I'm pissed off and don't want to, every day I offer her hospitality and welcome her to my home. Even though the days that I don't feel very welcoming, every day. My philosophy is, if you can't take time for your connection to the divine on whatever whether it's, for my case, it's the Morgan or Ziggy or, whatever that is, whoever you connect with or get that divine presence, download, whatever you want to call it. If you don't make the time for that, none of that other stuff works.
Yeah, that's true.
Really. I mean, I teach classes on her, and, people will say, well, I didn't really have time with this, that, and the other. I'm like, well, you have to look at this as a relationship. Because it is.
Yeah.
Right. To me, it's the most important relationship I have other than my beloved. Now, if I only talk to my beloved 5 minutes a day, chances are I don't have a very good relationship with her.
That's true.
You know, I would probably be better off with a goldfish if that's what I'm looking at with the relationship, right? So the more I can stay in line, in tune, connected, thinking on, I think for me, that is my self-care, is my personal practice with her. Because if I don't have that right, none of the other stuff to me matters.
It's true.
And that's hard. I mean, it's
super
not
hard.
It is not easy.
And we tell ourselves we don't have time. We'll be like, oh, well, this or that, and the point of it being is like, starting in that space is extremely important in how you stay balanced and focused and all of those things. So your answer to the third question might be very similar to your answer to the second, but what does it look like to be centered and balanced in your life? Like, what's your practice there?
I think mine is just keeping in mind who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it. It's kind of like, we were talking earlier. It's like, all right, so if you wake up and you stub your toe first thing and you think, man, this is going to be a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
And you will pick out everything on the planet that day to enforce that first thought. This is going to be a bad day. See, I knew it was going to be a bad day. Car won't start. They gave me the wrong stuff at Burger King. Coffee's cold, whatever that is. I knew that day was going to suck. I should have stayed. But I've had a lot of those, so I can talk. But I think a lot of it is just, focusing on controlling the controllables, right? Because, stuff I ain't got no control over. So why waste a good word, right? Control the controllables and just, remember that I am, a child of the Morgan, and we'll let her take care of a lot of that stuff that I ain't got nothing to do with.
Yeah.
Because if I can't directly impact it, why am I spending time on it?
Right. I got this message about 3 months ago. I just heard myself saying it to people over and over again. And it was, worrying is not planning.
Ouch.
So yeah, I've been trying to embrace that lately. Like, worrying is not planning. Like,
well, it doesn't mean I don't do it.
Right. Yeah, it's human nature. We can't stop ourselves. It's going to come up, but where it goes out is up to us. Like, that's the truth.
So one thing I've learned through this is that the more I do, the more I do. I don't think it ever gets to the point, I figured, well, once I get this and I can, I got it all figured out, it'll be easy.
No.
I'm better off not thinking that, right?
I'll throw another Haitian saying. The Haitian saying is, beyond the mountain is another mountain.
Yep.
So that's the truth.
Yeah, it's not a plateau. It's
no, we don't just get there and then it's there. Keep going. And again. It was so great spending time with you. I super appreciate you bringing your wisdom and guidance to this show. Can you let our listeners know where to find you? Any upcoming events, anything that you want to bring forward to them?
Pretty much everything's at the website, ravenskeepforge.com. Ravens Keep Forge, that's the same thing for Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I do most of what I do is on commission. I do have stuff for sale online. Did write a book.
Yeah, that's right. We didn't even talk about the book.
Didn't even talk about the book.
Give us the 3-minute rundown on that.
I got 3 minutes.
No, I'm just kidding.
That's a lot of talking. All right. Actually, here you go. It's called Metal Never Lies. It's an introduction to metal magic. I wrote it because nobody else has. There's nothing else out there like it. Fortunately, unfortunately, depending on how you. I did not grow up wanting to write a book. I never want to write another one. I didn't ever want to write this one. But basically, it's a book / workbook on how to connect to the spirit of metal. Like I said earlier, we become disconnected from it. Find me somebody that doesn't have iron in their system.
Right.
Not going to happen. Not if they're upright. We have to have it, right? Copper, same thing. You got to have copper. And we've got copper running all through our homes, right? It carries electricity. My house has copper pipe for plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, we're surrounded by this stuff. You get in a metal box if you go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Why not, since it's of the earth, we look at it as being some kind of man-made thing, and it's not. It's been around longer than we have. Why not work on connecting to the spirit of that and work on allying ourselves with it instead of it just being a thing?
Yeah.
Right? Because we have, like I said, we have iron in our systems, we have copper in our systems, the four metals that I talk about in the book. The other one is brass, right? Because you take brass and zinc. We also have zinc in our body, but zinc and copper make brass. So we have brass. And the other one is bronze, right? So we got tin and copper make bronze. Now, this is simplistic.
Right. That's not everything I ever needed to know in 3 minutes.
Right, that's it. Now you're good. That's all you need to know. Go fly, be free.
I'm building a forge right now.
But you have those four metals that are in your body anyway, right? That make up part of our composition. And why not connect with those? Because most of us have something along those lines within our magical practice, those that practice that thought. Why not connect with that and use it as an ally versus a whatchamajig that you take out on the high holidays?
Right.
And wrap it up in you take care of it, but why not let it be an ally versus just being a widget? And that's kind of what the book is about. It's about reconnecting to the magic of metal. And you don't need to be a smith to do it. Williams can do it. You don't need to be a smith.
Nice. I love that. That's funny. All right. Thank you so much. And I can't tell you how grateful I am. And we're also going to send a spark of gratitude out to our listeners. Thank you, dear listener, for choosing to connect with us. Be sure to listen through as the next segment brings forward tools and tips on how to do the work.
Production of the Be Your Soul podcast is made possible in part by Little Energies, a children's chakra-aligned oracle deck. Little Energies is made specifically for children to learn and support their own healthy energy system. These 24 chakra-aligned oracle cards focus on energy wellness through mantras, exercises, and envisioning. Find more information at littleenergies.com. That's LITTLEENERGIES.com. Coming up next, Sky shares a journaling practice to transform your inner critic into an ally.
In this segment, I offer tools and guidance that I have found helpful in my practice, and maybe you will too. This week, we will work on combating the critic in our head and supporting the authentic self's voice. Our critic can sometimes be the loudest voice and create havoc in our natural thoughts. One technique that helps quell the critic is polarity to positivity exercises. It can release unhealthy black and white thinking while simultaneously infusing self-forgiveness. You can think of it like heavy weights of negative energies on one side of the scale, and then you being able to add healthy, positive energies to the other side to balance it out. This connects to the spiritual understanding that 1 + 1 = 3. When we put two things together, the alchemy of energy says a third thing is formed. So instead of saying, I can either work this job or be happy, we say, how can I work this job and be happy? Remember, we cannot control our thoughts. We can, however, make choices in how we interact with them. That is where quietening the critic comes in with polarity to positivity thinking. This is a 3-part exercise that I've shortened to a few simple questions. It's part of my Understanding Energy in Action course. And if you want to connect with the long version, you can find it on our virtual classroom or on our Patreon. Links to both are on our website. The 3 parts are ownership, understanding, and polarity, also known as balance. We will start by thinking of a situation that you are currently struggling with. This can be simple, like declining an invite and feeling guilt, or telling someone something you know they won't like, but it is the truth. We will use these easy instances to begin before you try to tackle your bigger challenges. So get out your journal and let's turn that negative critic into a kind, positive solution. Often we take ownership or control over other people's choices, decisions, and actions. This puts us feeling powerless, trying to control a situation we have no power or say in. Can you be honest and ask yourself what your part is? Well, in almost any situation, we have at least a small part. We often have a tendency to either go into denial of any part or overtake responsibility, assuming it all. By getting to the core of what is actually yours, then we can understand what we have power over, and from there, create a healthier choice and decision. So, what is your part in this? What is truly your responsibility? Where is your ownership? Journal that. Next, we are going to work on understanding. Understanding and knowledge is key when it comes to standing in our center and being our authentic self. We don't know what we don't know until we know it, but it's our responsibility to try and learn. This means taking an empathetic viewpoint as well as thinking of what your needs are in order to formulate a positive and kind decision in the matter. Let's use the example of turning down an invite and feeling guilty that you might let a friend down. If you have an understanding of what the friend is asking, then you can make clear and kind decisions based on that without the urge to hold guilt. Did you get clean, clear information from your friend about what they are asking? It could range from anything to you being a face in the crowd at a party to them needing an intimate connection with a close friend. If you aren't curious and inquisitive enough to ask questions and find out what your friend is truly asking, then you may just lump these two things together. If you treat both of these instances as if they have the same weight in your life and your friend's life, then you're probably not understanding the complexities of the relationship and its needs, much less being able to make an informed decision. This misunderstanding means you approach everything with the same weight and measure, and therefore may create undue guilt or regret due to it. By not only looking at the question that might be creating your negative impression, but the fullness of all the ingredients of the situation, then you can have a clean, clear understanding and make a healthy, balanced choice. So, the question to journal here is, what is everything I know about this situation? What questions do I need to ask in order to feel as if I have a clear understanding of the situation? Where is my resistance? And do I have enough knowledge and information to support that resistance? Or do I need to know more? Journal that. The last aspect that we work on, I call polarity, which also can be thought of as balance. Polarity means looking at both sides of the coin. We use past experiences, wisdom, and truths to find the opposite to what the critic is telling us. In this part of the exercise, we will look at what the critic says compared to what our ownership and understanding told us to see which one feels more true. For this, I suggest that you make 2 columns on a fresh journal page and title one Monkey Mind and the other Polar Thought. Under the side that says Monkey Mind, write the first 3 things that come to your mind when you think of the situation. These are just your initial thoughts or the things that the critic has been telling you. Then, under Polar Thought, you want to think of 3 kind, informed, healthy statements that you can make that bring ownership and understanding into play. An example of what your monkey mind might tell you would be, my friend will be mad if I decline their invitation. An example of what your polar thoughts in regards to this might be, my friend loves me enough to support my self-care if that's what I need right now. Because we approach this first with ownership and understanding, It should be easier to write your polar thought process. If you practice this exercise regularly, then what will eventually happen is the critic becomes quieter because you are empowering the authentic self. You may hear the critic's voice, but in the long run, you can change your urge to believe it without question. I'm going to close this by reminding you what I said earlier. We cannot control our thoughts and emotions, but we do have power over what we do with them. May you be well. May you find peace. May you feel whole. And may you be blessed.
Remember, the long version of this exercise is available on our Patreon site. Patreon subscriptions start for as little as $5 a month and offer you early listening, PDF downloads of every episode's exercise, meditations, and more. Patreon is a great way to show your appreciation for the hard work and dedication that goes into bringing these messages to you. You can find the virtual classroom, Patreon links, and more on our website, beyoursoul.org.